Hello, everybody, and and a warm welcome to this Your Overseas Home webinar. Buy safely in Cyprus, avoid these costly legal pitfalls, something we definitely all want to avoid. My name is Christopher Nye. I am the senior editor at Your Overseas Home. And today we're focusing on Cyprus. That's why I'm delighted to be joined by Eleni Philippou, a legal expert from Philippou law firm based in Cyprus. I'm not sure exactly where in Cyprus you're sitting, but tell us now with a little introduction to yourself and Philippou law firm.
So, hello, Chris. So I'm Eleni Philippou. I am a partner, head of the property department at Philippou law firm. The head office is based in Paphos, Cyprus, and we also have a second office in Nicosia, which is the capital. And from these two offices, we basically serve the whole island. So it doesn't matter for us where in Cyprus our client is buying, we can deal with any transactions all over the island. We are also a one-stop shop, if you'd call it, law firm, which means that we can deal with multiple areas of law, including property investments. We can deal with corporate matters, tax matters, litigation if a client needs it, immigration, wills and estate planning, and generally all the legal needs of our clients coming from abroad.
Great. So we should come to you if we want a visa, if we want anything really involving the law, any aspect of moving there. Today we're going to be mainly focusing on buying, but that doesn't mean that we can't stray into other areas too. Now I'm going to ask questions that I hopefully will cover most of the important areas that our readers want to know. But we don't just want to hear from me. We want to hear from our viewers too. So do please put your questions into the tab on the somewhere on your screen. It should say questions. Just type in. No one else can see them. It's only me. Just to try using the tech, you could tell us where you are at the moment, where you're buying from. Are you British? Are you American? Are you elsewhere in Europe? We'd love to know where you're coming to Cyprus from. So do just type that in. And along with your questions, if we don't get time for your questions, there's a very handy thing that you should be able to see on your screen, a QR code. So if you just point your phone at that, you should get through, and you'll be able to make contact with Eleni for to progress your move. Okay, and if you don't, then we'll send you an email anyway, and with all the contact details. Okay, so let's start off by just walk us through the main legal process of buying property in Cyprus.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important, I think, to start off with saying that the legal process in Cyprus is very similar to that in the UK. So for those in our audience who may have experience with buying in France, in Spain, Portugal, the system is different. It's the continental system. We are a former British colony. We use primarily English law, common law, and therefore our procedure for buying property is very similar to that, what you would expect in the UK. So in Cyprus, there is a distinction between buying a property which is off-plan, meaning you are buying it and it's either completely from the architectural drawings or it's under construction, and buying a property that's a resale property. So in both procedures, the process basically always starts with the request for the payment of a reservation deposit. This is when you've put in an offer to buy a property, your offer has been accepted, and it's usually the estate agent involved that's going to ask you to put down a reservation deposit. The reservation deposit is counted towards the purchase price of the property, and it effectively takes the property off the market for a period of time called a reservation period. Now, this is a very important period for any buyer, because this is the period during which all the property due diligence must be done, And also all the information is collected from the buyer with regards to his source of funds, so that the buyer is able to make payments and get his money through the banking system so he can pay the seller. So step one in any process is the reservation deposit payment, reservation period, and then we get to stage two. So provided that the property due diligence, which has been carried out, hasn't shown any insurmountable problems, we get to stage two, which is the signing of contracts. In the UK, you would call it exchange, contract exchange. A very common question that we have from people is, well, how long is this reservation period meant to be? Well, pre-COVID, a long time ago, the reservation period used to be about 30 days. With changes in the banking system, anti-money laundering regulations, etc., we never recommend that any client puts down a reservation deposit unless he gets a minimum of 60 days reservation period. This is so that the buyer can have enough time to deal with the procedural aspect of buying. So step two, signing of contracts. After the signing of contracts, the process is primarily seller focused, because the seller will need to take the signed contract and start to apply to the different authorities to pay any taxes, obtain tax clearances, so we can actually get to completion, which is step three. So this process that I've just described, a three-step process, is what happens with a resale property. Reservation deposit, signing of contracts, completion. On completion, you pay the balance of the purchase price, you get the keys. Now, when it comes to buying a property which is off plan, step one is the same. You will be requested to pay the reservation deposit. Step two, again, is the same. You sign the contract. However, the property is not yet constructed, is not yet finished. So the difference is that you will not be requested to pay the full purchase price with the signing of contracts or handing over of the keys. So what happens is there will be stage payments according to construction stages, which means that the buyer will be asked to pay as the developer is constructing. You then have step three, which is delivery of possession. Again, when the property is finished, it could be a period of 12 months after the actual signing of the contract, depending on the stage of construction. And then you have a step four, which is a few months after, when the actual title deed for that property becomes available, and then it's transferred. So this is the general outline of what somebody should expect when they are buying property in Cyprus, whether resale or brand new.
Okay, fantastic. So we don't have to worry about notaries or any of that Napoleonic stuff.
Well, we don't have the notary system like other countries. So you would be relying on your lawyer to do things for you. You may need to get things notarized in the UK if you're not visiting Cyprus, or if you visited, picked the property and then went back to the UK. So you may be required to, for example, sign a power of attorney in front of a UK notary and then send the paperwork back. But in general, there are no notaries in the sense of the French system or the Spanish system. Okay, excellent.
Just looking at the question I asked earlier, Pete is in cold, rainy, windy Scotland. So hopefully we can get you down to Cyprus as soon as possible, Pete. Sounds like it's getting a bit too much for you. Okay, so what are the most common delays facing buyers in sort of title deeds, I suppose, and how can those be avoided?
Okay, so I think the delays primarily in the beginning of the transaction. So if you are coming over, you're going to pick a property so that you can understand roughly what things might stress you out or delay the process. These relate usually to the buyer's own personal circumstances, as in the paperwork he needs to get together for what we call KYC, know your client. And this is the information which is now required for anti-money laundering purposes. But these delays can actually be avoided if, before you actually choose the property that you wish to make an offer on, if you contact us, for example, and say, right, I'm looking for a property, I haven't found anything yet, what do I need to prepare? So then we can give you a list of the paperwork that you need to get together, which means that when you do pick the property, you've got your dossier or file of paperwork, and then the process is quite smooth. Now, these types of documents usually relate to the buyer's proof of identity, proof of address, home address in the UK, source of income, which is general things like, well, where do you work and what income? And then the specific thing is the proof of the source of the actual money, which is going to be used for the purchase here. Now, depending on the source of that money, for some people, it takes a little bit of time to get the information together. So because it might have been a sale of a property that happened a couple of years back, or it may be that they're using money which came from inheritance, or it may be a divorce settlement, or it may be sale of shares or stocks or what other source the money's coming from. So usually what could delay the process is the collection of all this information. As I said, it can be avoided, and the process can be very smooth and stress-free if the buyers are well prepared.
Okay, we've had a couple of questions on title deeds already. So Chris has said, I've heard of long delays getting title deeds. Is that normal? David has says, can you help in obtaining title deeds for bought properties? How do you go about it? I've been writing about Cyprus for a long time, and title deeds has always been an issue. I don't know if it's a historic issue, or is it still an issue?
Okay, so just to explain it as simply as possible. Now, as I mentioned previously, we used to be a British colony. So when we became a colony, the British actually did something wonderful. They created the land registry for us, which was one of the oldest land registry systems, and it still works until today. So what happened was they charted the whole island, so there is no unregistered land. We have these big, huge maps, everything is registered, and the whole land registry system was actually set up before we became independent in 1960. Now, by the, I would say, end of the 1990s, Cyprus started being developed very, very quickly. But we were still using pretty much the old colonial system of land registration. So effectively what happened was the development started happening too fast, and we had old procedures that were not able to process the new developments that were happening. So the whole system got clogged up. Because just to give you a very simple example, you have one piece of land, okay? And what happens usually, it's bought, let's say, by a developer, and he constructs, let's say, 5 houses, 20 villas, I don't know, 10 blocks of apartments on one piece of land. So then what needs to happen is that developer needs to apply to the land registry to cancel out that one title deed of the land and create 20 new ones or 50 new ones. So that's where the system clogs up, and there is a delay with the issuing of title deeds for people on these developments. Now, there is actually protection in the law, and this protection is called specific performance. And specific performance is something which is really great, although it's a notion that comes from English law, from equity actually. When we were a colony, the idea of specific performance was actually put in the law. So buyers of property have protection by law if they register their contract of purchase at the land registry. So if you get your lawyer and your lawyer does all the due diligence of the property correctly, lodges your contract of purchase at the land registry in priority of any mortgages, charges, or anything else, it doesn't matter thereafter if there is a delay for the issuing of the title deeds, because you have created a first charge against that property. For those of you in the UK, because the process is quite similar when you have a bank, let's say, that has first charge, and then you have a contract which creates a second charge, the bank has priority. It's exactly the same thing. If you put your contract first, you have priority, so no bank can actually come and repossess the property, and your investment is safe. You may, if your developer goes bust, for example, you may have a delay in obtaining the title deed. However, nobody can take that property away from you.
Okay. Okay, great. That's really clear. And yes, it's helpful to get the historical context too.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Just to go through a couple of other reader questions. One is, how much does the reservation have to be? Is it based on the purchase price as a percentage?
Okay. So the reservation deposit is usually dependent on the actual value of the property you're buying. So if you're buying, let's say, a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartment in the region between, let's say, 200 and 300,000, you would usually be asked to pay 5, 8, 10,000 euros as a reservation deposit, which gets discounted off the purchase, which is part of the purchase price. Now, the higher the value of the property, the more you're likely to be asked to pay as a reservation deposit. You need to keep in mind that with the payment of the reservation deposit, you don't sign the main contract. The signing of the main contract, which is step 2, is usually with the payment of 30% of the purchase price. Once the contract is signed, then you can block the property for specific performance. So that's why these amounts are very different.
Okay. We've got some excellent questions coming in, but let's just focus on the purchase process just for a moment.
Yes.
How can a buyer verify that the property they're purchasing has no hidden debts or encumbrances?
So, as I mentioned previously with the process, it's very, very important that the property due diligence searches are done at the beginning of the process and before you sign a contract. That's why it's extremely important to get a lawyer that's independent and that's going to do all the due diligence searches and basically tell you what they found out. Now, as a firm, it's standard process for us. Once the reservation deposit has been paid and we're going through this reservation period, we will do the due diligence searches over the property, and we will prepare a property report with our findings, which we will give clients so that they can decide, is this property one that I want to buy, or am I going to walk away? So all the information needs to be in front of the buyer so that they understand what they're getting themselves into.
Okay. I apologize if you've already said this, but if in the UK, until you've exchanged contracts, you really have no protection at all. Does the reservation deposit avoid that risk?
Yes, and that's a very good question, Chris, because this is the one bit that I would say that our system works a little bit better, because a lot of the times in the UK, you've got offer and acceptance, and then things seem to be going on indefinitely until you have exchange of contracts. And then you don't know. And then you also have chains. People get gazumped as well. Whereas here, at least when you've paid your reservation deposit, you sign a reservation agreement, and things are very clear, or things should be very clear in the reservation agreement. So how long is the property off the market for? 45, 60 days, 90 days. When does the buyer get his reservation deposit back? And when does he lose it? So these are 3 things that are super important that are mentioned in the reservation agreement. And that the buyer doesn't just pay a reservation deposit to an estate agent and just receives a receipt to say, oh, received 10,000 euros as reservation deposit for X property. That's not good enough.
Okay, yep. It isn't just a minor problem in the UK buying system. It's the worst problem that many of us face in our adult lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So glad to hear we don't have it in Cyprus.
No, we don't.
Okay. What are the key clauses or red flags to look for in a property sale contract?
Before I answer that one, can I just add something to the previous subject of the reservation deposit? A lot of times I get clients who will contact us after they've paid the reservation deposit, because as you can probably imagine, agents can be quite pushy, and you have a buyer, they see their dream home, there will be other viewings, and everybody knows how things are, and sometimes people will feel pressured to put down a reservation deposit. So buyers will contact us after they've put down the reservation deposit, or and that sometimes creates a little bit of an issue for us, because we cannot put the terms that we want in the reservation agreement. So ideally, if you are looking at properties, try not to get too pressured into paying the reservation deposit to the agent. Contact the lawyer first, so that the reservation agreement or reservation receipt with the correct wording is prepared, and then you can put your reservation deposit down, which means that the three key issues of how long is the property off the market for, when do you get your deposit back, and when you lose it are covered. And then there won't be any reason to stress.
So really, I suppose the first question is, when should we be in contact with you? And it's before we get on that flight to Cyprus. And also, it's a lot easier. But I would guess that it's a lot easier if your estate agent is pressuring you, saying, "Oh no, we have a lawyer. Don't go elsewhere." To say, "Oh, I've already got a lawyer." So I think it's really important to get on the front foot and just be in control of the process.
Correct. And I think that's the key, Chris, being in control of the process, so that you're not being guided or taken wherever, let's say, the agent wants, or the developer or the seller, and hopefully you will avoid pitfalls that way.
Great. Yes, exactly. Okay. Let me just go to some of our audience questions. Now, this is an interesting one. Would you recommend, it may be personal preference, but I'll ask it anyway. Would you recommend renting for a year before buying, just to be sure you're happy with the neighborhood?
Well, that's a good question. We do get people who prefer to rent, and others that sort of come out, or they've been coming out for a long time and they kind of know where they want to be. I would say like you said, it's a personal preference. So
yeah, it's up to you.
Mark,
both Mark and Peter asked that. I suppose perhaps a related question that gets into the visa area. If you're applying for a visa, should you be doing that at the same time as buying the property, or I guess there might be an implication there?
It depends on what you want to do, because you can apply for a temporary residence permit with your tenancy agreement. You don't necessarily need to buy to obtain residency, so you can do that. And then if you are going to buy something which is brand new from a developer, and then you become eligible, let's say, to apply for the golden visa, as we call it, the permanent residency golden visa, then you can apply for that as well. So there's no restriction. If you want to come out and rent, buy, whether it's resale or new or whatever it is, you can get a residency visa.
Great. Okay. Elizabeth has asked, if you are purchasing an off-plan project, is there an insurance scheme equivalent to the NHBC, which I think is the UK one, to support a buyer if the developer enters administration?
No, we don't have something equivalent to that, although I would love to see something like that, brought into Cyprus. Now, the way we basically mitigate the risk of, let's say, the developer going bankrupt, let's say, before the completion of the project, is by connecting the payments to construction stages to ensure that a buyer has only paid up to the construction stage that's actually been built. So it means that and with the contract being registered for specific performance at the land registry, it means that even if the developer has, let's say, gone bankrupt, no bank will be able to claim that particular property. So again, going back to the importance of having a lawyer that does the due diligence before you go and sign the contract, so that your contract has priority over any claims. Now, on this, it's also, it's also good to know that there are searches that we can do on behalf of a client, and we usually give this option to look at the financial background and do like a credit search over the developer as well, and see what their financial standing is like. And like I said, this is an option we give to clients, and these kind of credit searches can either be done in secret, so the seller will never find out about, that that this particular company is looking into them, investigating them, or if you choose to do it that way, the developer or the seller is informed, and they can actually provide information as well for the preparation of this investigation. So there are things that you can do, avoiding, developers that may be a little bit shaky or a bit problematic.
Okay. We talked about legal pitfalls. So I guess what are the common legal pitfalls that international buyers find?
I would say that a lot of buyers, we covered the first thing, a lot of buyers will feel pressure and put down a reservation deposit on something, and we can't get the reservation back from estate agents or from any person. We find out, let's say, that the property is problematic, the due diligence, we do the due diligence and it comes up as problematic, we can't get the reservation deposit back. Another thing is that buyers will go and, let's say, they will find a lawyer that's been recommended to them either by the estate agent or by the developer, or a lot of the times the developer will say, oh, you don't need to get yourself an independent lawyer, we can do it in-house, you save yourself the legal fees, it's not a problem, etc. Now, keep in mind that your contract of purchase is like an umbrella, and you will only see if it's got holes in it when you need it, and it starts raining and you open it and then, it's not working. So I think these two things are really, really important. And if you get yourself an independent lawyer and you don't put down the reservation deposit without being told that it's okay to do it, you are saving yourself from the biggest problems. So,
okay. I would also add to that, of course, the currency risk that the pound is up and down. We've
absolutely
just down to the lowest for 30 months. So, you might have trouble completing if you haven't perhaps got a forward contract in your currency.
Yeah, correct.
If a dispute arises after the purchase, what are the buyer's legal options?
Just like any contract which is breached, the options are going to court. We try to negotiate, see if there is the possibility with developers or sellers or whatever it is to actually solve the dispute out of court. But if necessary, we will go to court. Like I said, we do have a litigation department. Litigation is never our first option because it's time consuming and it's costly. So we feel that it's not in the best interests of our clients if we're acting for a buyer to go to court, because, you know, the only person that wins is the lawyers in the middle. So
absolutely, yes.
So
okay. Strictly speaking, we run out of time, but as we've got lots of people here, and I'm enjoying myself,
I'm happy to carry on.
Let's just ask a few more questions and at least finish off the process. Okay, so what about buying through a company or a trust rather than as an individual? Is that an option, and what are the benefits or disbenefits?
Of course, it's an option, and a lot of the times at the beginning of the journey, let's say, clients will ask, "Well, I'm thinking of doing this and thinking of doing this," so we will give you the costs of different options. And there are clients who prefer, especially if the property is going to be, if it's a simple property purchase for own personal use, most people will buy in their own names. A company, the cost of the conveyancing, if you're buying through a company or a trust, is the same pretty much. However, you have an additional cost of actually registering and setting up a company, and you also have annual fees. So this option is not for everyone, but it works for some people, because obviously taxes are much lower in Cyprus than they are in the UK. So if you're buying a property as an investment and you're going to have an income from it, it's more beneficial to put it through a company, lower tax, no tax on dividends. So it's more beneficial.
I see. Yes, of course, because there are restrictions, are there not, on short-term rentals? Perhaps if you're just an individual, especially non-resident.
No. There aren't any restrictions. No, not that type. You just need to get a license to have short-term rentals, and obviously you're creating an income. So when you're creating an income, you pay tax. So it's cheaper to pay tax as a company, depending on the rate of the tax bracket. Because our current corporate tax is 12.5%, and there's zero tax on dividends. So makes sense not to pay too much tax when you have an income.
On that tax issue, as I recall from in Cyprus, there's a difference in the VAT levels, and you can either pay 15% or 19%. You can easily find you strayed into the wrong tax bracket and find you have to pay extra, such as selling.
No, it's not like that.
Okay.
I'll explain. So if you're buying a resale property, a used property, there's no VAT on property. Okay, zero. So there's only VAT when you're buying a brand new property, and VAT is at 19%. Now, first-time buyers who are going to use the property personally, not rent it out, and not buy it through a company, but buy it in their own personal names for their own personal use, can apply to reduce the VAT rate from 19 to 5%.
Right.
Okay, so that's how you do it. If, however, you want to sell the property early, or if you want to rent it out, you will be called upon to actually pay the 14% VAT that you got discounted previously, because it's considered a government grant for first-time buyers. So you should keep the property for 10 years.
Okay.
And like I said, if you want to sell previous, can be done.
And that doesn't matter. That's just a first-time buyer, obviously, in Cyprus. It doesn't matter. Okay, great. We got a question about the difference, the differences between buying in the Republic of Cyprus and the northern Cyprus. Perhaps you could just explain that a bit.
Okay, so there is no Republic of Northern Cyprus. It's a military regime. It's only recognized as a country by Turkey and I think Pakistan. So the Republic of Cyprus is Cyprus, a member of the European Union, etc. So buying anything in the north, which is what we call the occupied side, is actually quite dangerous in the sense that your investment is not secured, because you don't know which land, let's say you're buying a property, you don't know who owns the land that the property has been built on. So you're running the risk of either being sued or basically losing the money of your investment. And there have been court cases recently and for the last 50 or so years against buyers of property in the northern part of Cyprus.
Great. I'm glad you cleared that up for us.
Yeah.
What about inheritance law? If you're buying a property but you're not a Cypriot citizen, what do we need to know about that?
Well, there is zero inheritance tax in Cyprus. Nil, yes, absolutely. So we do a lot of estate planning in Cyprus. So what we normally recommend is when you buy property in Cyprus, you have a separate will to the one that you've got in the UK or other countries. Have a separate will in Cyprus to cover your Cypriot assets only. And then it makes life a lot easier afterwards for beneficiaries because probate is dealt with through the Cypriot system. It's faster, it's cheaper, and there's zero inheritance tax.
Is there any sort of enforced heirship rule or anything like that you do get in other countries?
Well, there is, however, it applies basically to the locals. And what we normally do is in wills for, let's say, British citizens, we will basically put a clause, a jurisdiction clause, and we say it will be dealt with under English law, for example, which means that they can still leave their assets wherever they want to. So
I have to say, I think I'm quite a fan of the enforced heirship rule. It just seems like it's something that we should have everywhere. But I understand that we don't do it.
Modern families are very complicated, so I think with forced heirship rules, you end up having a very, very big mess.
Oh, do you? Okay, well that's fair enough.
Because you can have children from different marriages and the spouse.
Well, I mean, that's the big problem.
One person dies, you have second marriage, you've got children, and then everybody co-owns a house, and the spouse is left with,
it would make a great sitcom, perhaps, but not
yeah,
but a bit of a legal problem. Okay, let's just finish off with a general question. Your top 3 pieces of legal advice for anyone buying a home in Cyprus in 2026.
Well, I would say get yourself an independent lawyer. Contact the lawyer before you go out viewing, before you decide to buy. And definitely don't pay a reservation deposit to anyone unless the lawyer has said that it's okay to do so.
Okay, that's fantastic. That has wrapped things up really, really nicely. And we've had a thoroughly pleasant 40 minutes. So thank you, Eleni, for your, as ever, insightful guidance and practical tips. To everyone watching, if you're considering buying in Cyprus, we highly recommend reaching out to Philippou Law Firm for one-to-one legal advice. And finally, if you found this webinar helpful, please do consider leaving us a quick review on Trustpilot. It does help others find, there you go. It does help others find the expert guidance they need. Thanks again to you, Eleni. Thank you to our viewers, and happy property hunting.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.